This is a fresh story happening pretty recently. My family and I were driving to college to help me move in, as I'm currently a first-year student. Once we arrived, I found out that I would be living in a Jack and Jill, which means you and another room shared the same bathroom. So, essentially, I'd be living with 3 other guys. I already knew one of them in the other room. We met at orientation and got to know each other. His roommate doesn't matter for this story, though. It's my roommate, Walter, who I'm going to talk about. I got his socials beforehand, and we exchanged information prior to moving in. I tried talking to him on Instagram to get to know him better, but his replies seemed dry. On top of that, his profile seemed like one of those Discord mods that you see on Instagram Reels or TikTok. Once we moved in, I met him, and ironically, he looked like a Discord mod, except he had a skinny build around my height. He looked very pale and had a peach fuzz mustache. I tried talking to him again. His talking style matched his texting style and seemed very introverted. He stuttered a lot and always tried to end the conversation as quickly as possible. I tried to lighten him up by asking what kind of music he listens to, but he said he doesn't, as music wouldn't fill his cup of emptiness. To make things more weird, when he set up his PS5, he immediately started gaming. It's not him gaming that's weird, it's what he does when he games. Walter makes these weird grunting noises, violently shakes his body, and laughs when he spams the controller. He puts his feet in his desk cabinet, occasionally grabbing his feet and pulling them towards his body during his shakes. He also whispers to himself as he plays, whether by himself or with his online friends, and he usually repeats what he whispered twice in a giggly manner. He stays in the room 24/7 and almost never does homework. His movements alone freak me out as I'm trying to sleep, but there's more to the story. Sometime around the first week, I went out with some friends that I met in my dorm building, and I came back pretty late to my dorm. Around 1 a.m. Walter looked asleep in his bed, so I nudged it off as I went to my cabinet, which was right next to my bed. I felt my arm hairs get goosebumps and felt the urge to turn around, so I did. Walter was staring right at me with a slight grin on his face. I yelped and said, "Holy, Walter, why are you looking at me like that?" He laughed it off and said, "Dark time," and turned around to face the wall. This creeped me out, and it happened, I want to say, 3 more times. I tried to move out, but my college said they didn't have any dorms open, so I tried to move into the other room, but one of the other roommates didn't want to leave as well. This meant I was stuck with Walter for the semester, and I just had to deal with it. About 3 months passed by, and I came back from my English class. When I opened the door to my dorm, Walter stood up in a panic, asking me why I was back so early. This was weird, as my English class actually ended late, hence me getting back late. I asked him if he needed the room to himself, and he declined, striking some weird pose that looked like it was from some anime. He said that I shouldn't be worried at all. I visibly cringed at him, and his statement only made me more uncomfortable. I noticed he had a box on his desk, and when I brought it up, he told me that it wasn't important. I shrugged it off. At this time, I noticed that my iPhone charger and my scissors were missing. I asked Walter if he had seen them, and he said he had. He handed me the scissors, and as he was handing me the iPhone charger, the cable knocked his box over to me as well. The box opened, and what I saw made my heart sink. A sticky note with my name on it fell out. Alongside this was what looked to be a see-through case. Inside it were eyelashes, a pair of glasses, a pair of my socks, and a disposable photo of me that I took as a joke. He collected all of it up off the floor as he tried explaining the meaning of it, and I yelled at him to get out. He left immediately. I texted my RA about the situation, and he told me that he was out at the moment, but when he came back tomorrow, I should show him the box as evidence so that they would have a reason to kick Walter out. So, I got the box and hid it within my laundry bin. I felt really rattled, and the sight of my roommate disgusted me. However, in an hour, he came back. I just told him to stay on his side and not to talk to me. After that, no words were spoken. I tried to stay awake out of fear that he might try to find the box, but after a long day, I fell asleep around 2 a.m. When I woke up, I saw Walter was gone, and it felt good seeing him out of the room for once. But then I remembered the box. I went to my laundry bin, and it was gone. I panicked, and not long after, my RA was knocking on the door. I let him in and told him the story. While he did believe me, he said he couldn't do anything without that box, otherwise, he'd just be going off my word alone. Which wasn't much. I felt like I was losing my mind. The RA left, and about 5 hours later, Walter came back. I asked him what he did with the box. He played dumb and said, "What box? I don't know what you're talking about." I pressured him to stop playing dumb, but Walter kept denying it. I couldn't stand to look at him or be in the same room with him anymore. It's now the second semester, and yes, I'm still dorming with Walter, unfortunately. He did let me know that he will never do it again and that if he does, he'll let me know and we'll move out immediately. I took his word, and we're still dorming as of today. However, I stay out of the room as much as I can. He still creeps me out. The worst part is that I can't sleep sometimes nor focus during the day as I keep thinking of what was in the box. Why did he steal my photo? Why did he steal my socks? What were the glasses for? The part that leaves me scared each time is what those eyelashes were doing there, and perhaps weirdest of all, was that he labeled the box with my name. This takes place during the first week of school, my freshman year at the University of Iowa. I was just starting to get comfortable with my roommate. He was dedicated to the idea of rushing a fraternity, and rush week was starting the next week. But the parties were starting Thursday of the first week. My roommate didn't want to go alone because it would be harder to meet people that way, so he wanted me to go. I happily agreed to go with him, even though I had no interest in rushing a fraternity. I still had intentions to go to parties. After all, I was attending a party school. My roommate wanted to go to one frat party on Thursday and then parties at different frat houses on Friday and Saturday. On this Thursday night, we were headed to perhaps one of the lowest-ranked frats. I'm pretty sure it was an underground one too, but his logic in attending was to have a backup frat in case the higher ones wouldn't give him a bid. The frat house was really far from campus and in a much more slummy downtown area. We pulled up to a corner house, and if it weren't for the blasting music and cars parked everywhere, we would never have pictured this house as a frat house. It literally looked like they settled with the first house they found. We knocked on the door to immediately be greeted by some short, chubby guy in a white t-shirt holding a Solo cup. His shirt had sweat stains by his armpits and mid-belly area. He told us to come right in. The party itself was in a horribly dimly lit room with probably 50 guys bunched up into the living room. It was hot as hell in there. To make it even worse, I think I saw maybe 2 girls at the entire party, neither of them even close to attractive. I gave the party a good 20 minutes, talking with one overweight foreigner after another, all giving off anti-social vibes. Eventually, I waved for my roommate to get ready to leave, but a huge group of guys by the door made us decide to wait a little longer to avoid the awkwardness of leaving early. I continued to drink the cheap beers they were serving. I think I downed 5 cups before I could even feel a buzz. A heavy guide approached me with a tiny bottle in his hand and handed it to me, smirking and saying, "That'll get you shit-faced." I fake laughed and thanked him, expecting him to go away, but he just watched me as if he were waiting for me to drink it. So I did. It was maybe 2 shots worth of some kind of hard liquor. The guy then started making conversation with me, and every time I hinted that I was trying to get away, he would try to pull me further into this otherwise one-sided conversation. Things started to get really blurry pretty soon. I remember feeling dizzy all of a sudden, and the room seemed to be getting darker. That was the last thing I remember before waking up in a dark room, lying in a bed. I could hear the sound of music muffled behind closed doors, so I knew I was still in the frat house. It was a very dark room, however, I could still make out certain furniture in the room and a small closet door, not much else. But even over the blaring music, I heard the sound of a plastic bag being crunched from the closet as if somebody had stepped on it by mistake. I ran out of that room and down the stairs back to the overcrowded living room. I found my roommate and pushed him out the front door, past the group of guys still standing in a circle right next to it. During the car ride back to campus, I told my roommate I was drugged. He almost called the cops, but I said it would be foolish and pointless. My roommate then asked me an awkward question: was I taken advantage of? I didn't feel any type of pain, and my clothes were all still on, so I assumed not. When I did a time check, I realized I'd only been out for maybe 10 minutes before waking up. Whatever the guy gave me must have been a dud or something. Thank God. That was my college experience of attending an underground ghetto frat party, and it remains my scariest life experience. I'm not going to lie, I basically went to college to smoke weed and go to parties. My full intention was to do just enough to get by while partying as much as I could. Unfortunately, though, for me, I only applied to a few schools and was only accepted to one, a small college in the mountains of New Hampshire. It was very small, around 3,500 total undergrads, and I went not knowing anybody. On the first day, as I was skipping the ice-breaking games and other students were giving tours of the campus to their families before leaving, I wandered down a small path behind the cafeteria toward a small stream that I had noticed during the drive-in. I lit a joint, and I was just meandering around when I noticed another dude a little further down the stream that cut a straightish path through the trees. He was also smoking a joint, I assumed, at least by the way he was holding it. So I made my way over to see if I just made my first college friend and introduce myself. His name was Louis, and he seemed pretty cool. He was smoking some really nice herbs, so I figured I could get along with him. He only stood at about 5 feet 5 inches, and he was also a little stubby, but I remember noticing that he had a really weird laugh, like a nervous type. Whenever he laughed, he'd kind of look off to the side and then glance back at me from his peripheral vision. Yeah, I knew it was kind of weird back then for being the first time I'd met him, literally the first 30 seconds of introducing myself. But I just thought maybe he was socially awkward, had bad teeth, or who knows. I was taught not to judge, and he was otherwise normal. We ended up hanging out fairly frequently, playing video games, drinking, and smoking. But other people, especially in my dorm, didn't really seem to take to him, not that I really felt a strong connection with him. I didn't. It was a very superficial friendship built around drugs and debauchery, but I definitely got the sense that my other friends weren't comfortable around him. Then something weird happened that I've managed to successfully forget about until just very recently. My heart is pumping out of my chest just typing this. One weekend, my roommate was home for a visit, and Louis's roommate was having his girlfriend over, which basically implied in college terms that Louis was staying with me. It kind of just seemed automatic. We got trashed, smoked a ton, got pizza, and played video games. I was pretty out of it, and we were both sitting in desk chairs in my room, passing a bowl back and forth. When he handed the bowl to me, leaning toward me in his chair, he put his hand over my hand and casually in a low, steady voice said, "I'm going to kill you." Okay, so like I said, we were all sorts of up, but I was definitely freaked out a little. He'd never really been aggressive before, even at his most intoxicated, and he certainly never said anything like this before. I've never handled confrontation very well, so all I said was, "Dude, don't do that, bro," and I sort of just laughed it off. I tried to write it off as a drunk, stoned idiot playing too much Mortal Kombat. We had a bunk bed set up in the room since it was pretty small, and I was on the top. My roommate was a bigger guy and didn't want to have to climb down to pee in the middle of the night. We had both gone to bed, but my roommate had put up Christmas lights that we always kept on, strung along the ceiling. I'm half deaf, I should add, and when I sleep, I tend to roll onto my functioning ear to block out sounds or maybe muffle them in the pillow. This also means that I'm a pretty heavy sleeper. But sometime during the night, I woke up feeling a little nauseous and slowly opened my eyes. Louis was standing on the edge of the mattress, holding on to the side railings of my top bunk and staring directly at my face as I was sleeping. My eyes grew wide as I snapped awake and sat up. "What the hell, dude?" I said, backing up and bumping my head on the wall behind me. Then he turned his head and gave me that look from the corners of his eyes, the same smile and laugh that freaked me out the first day I met him. He was still holding the railings, standing on the mattress from the lower bunk, with his face lit in weird splashes of color from the Christmas lights. He took one hand from the railing, put his finger to his mouth while smiling and still looking at me sideways, and whispered, "Shoot," before hopping down and leaving the room. It was like 3 a.m., and I don't know where he went that night. I never told anyone about that, and I pretty much did my best to bury it and never think about it again. I avoided Louis for the rest of the year, making up excuses when he wanted to chill alone, but I did end up at the same parties with him a few times. We never talked about it, though. He never brought it up. I transferred to another school the following year, not because of Louis or anything, just financial reasons. I did manage to forget about that weird incident, but that was 15 years ago. I'm 33 now and recently got a call from my old roommate from the school in New Hampshire, who luckily remembered my very repetitive phone number. I actually made a song out of it that's really easy to remember, and I've never changed the number. "Man, remember that guy Louis that you used to hang out with at the dorms? He killed his 2 friends with a hunting knife and fishing line on a camping trip a year ago," he said. He said he was too screwed up to control himself, supposedly, and he was mixing his meds with booze and drugs. They said he just lost it. The thing that messes with me is wondering if he told them he was going to kill them like he did me, and that the last thing they saw was that sideways smile that I saw when I woke up that night. Thanks for watching the video. Subscribe to the channel and turn on notifications to watch the latest videos.